This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione as they scanned the recipe. Lacewing, flies, leeches, fluxweed, and knotgrass, she murmured, running her finger down the list of ingredients. Well, they're easy enough because they're the student store cupboard. We can help ourselves. Oh, look, powdered horn of bicon. Don't know where we're going to get that. Shredded skin of boomslang. That'll be tricky too. And of course, a bit of whoever we want to change into. Excuse me, said Ron sharply. What do you mean a bit of whoever we're changing into? I'm drinking nothing with crab's toenails in it. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. We don't have to worry about that yet, though, because we add those bits at last. Ron turned speechless to Harry, who had another worry. Don't you realise we're going to have to steal? How much we're going to have to steal, Hermione? Shredded skin of boomslang. That's definitely not in the student's cupboard. What we're going to do? Break into Snape's private stores? I don't know if that's a good idea. Hermione shut the book with a snap. Do I sound weird? I definitely do. And the reason I sound weird is because I read without something then, and it's not expression. The thing that I actually read without then was punctuation, recognising the pieces of punctuation that we have in this particular text. When we're reading, we really need to make sure that we're recognising punctuation, and the reason that it's so important is so we don't end up sounding like that. And also, it gives so much more meaning to the text. If you were being read to like that, you would be bored, you'd be falling asleep, but you also wouldn't be understanding the story as much. So today, or this week, we are focusing on acknowledging, recognising, and using punctuation when we read aloud and also when we read in our heads. So let's see how this would sound with the use of punctuation. This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione as they scanned the recipe. Lacewing flies, leeches, fluxweed, and knotgrass, she murmured, running her fingers down the list of ingredients. Well, they're easy enough. They're in the student store cupboard. We can help ourselves. Oh, look, powdered horn of a bicorn. Don't know where we're going to get that. Shredded skin of boomslang. That'll be tricky too. And of course, a bit of whoever we want to change into. Excuse me? Said Ron sharply. What do you mean a bit of whoever we're going to change into? I'm drinking nothing with crab's toenails in it. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. We don't have to worry about that yet, though, because we add those bits at the end. Ron turned, speechless, to Harry, who had another worry. Do you realise how much we're going to have to steal, Hermione? Shredded skin of boomslang, that's definitely not in the student's cupboard. What are we going to do? Break into Snape's private stores? I don't think that's a good idea. Hermione shut the book with a snap. Okay, so when we're talking about punctuation, we're talking about the marks that signal to us that we need to change the way that we read. Okay, and there are 5 pretty major ones that we're going to focus on. You can probably guess what they are. If you want to set yourself a challenge, hit the pause button, see if you can write the 5 down, and then come back and see if you've gotten them right. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you right now. So either hit pause or listen to this and write them down in your book, please. Full stop, comma, talking marks, question mark, exclamation mark. They're the 5 things. Well, I mean, look, there's other pieces of punctuation, but these are the 5 things that we're going to focus on today. And what the purpose of this little YouTube video or masterclass is for you guys to get a really good understanding of what all 5 of those things do when you're reading a piece of text. Okay, so let's explore them. First one is full stop. I think most of you guys know how to do this one or how to show that you've seen that there's a full stop there. And I've written it down on my piece of paper and I'd like you to do the same thing as well. For a full stop, you close your mouth, you end the sentence, and you go slightly down at the end of the sentence. So what I mean by that is this. Let's say, oh gosh, I need to try and find that same page. Here we go. Oh, I managed to find it straight away. So for example, there's this sentence here. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. Okay? Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. I will go down slightly at the end. I'm going to show you the, I'm going to see if I can show you the text. It's just here where my finger is. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. Okay? And you'll know what I mean by going down when I get to another one of the punctuation marks. So we're closing our mouths, we're stopping, and we're taking a new breath. Okay, that's what we do for a full stop. The next one is comma. Comma. We pause briefly and we slow down. So there was a great sentence in here where we had to do that, where it says, Ron turned, speechless, to Harry, who had another worry. So in that particular sentence, which is, oh, here, where my finger is here. Oh, which way? There. Ron turned, pause, speechless, pause, to Harry, pause, who had another worry. Okay? The idea behind a comma is that you might be building suspense, or you might be giving kind of extra detail to one particular sentence. So it's not about necessarily closing your mouth and stopping, but it is about kind of pausing and keep going. You don't necessarily have to take a new breath, but it's just about stopping. It's like jumping on a lily pad. You stop very quickly and then you go on to the next one and that kind of thing. Okay, commas are really important, and commas are a really interesting thing to put into your writing, actually, if you want to build kind of an interesting story or a little bit of depth or interest, I suppose. Okay, so that's the second one. I believe the third one that I said was were talking marks. So, talking marks, I think these are the ones that you guys recognize the most and show that you know what they mean the most, because they're the easiest, right? They're the easiest. You put on a different voice for the character or for the person who's speaking or for the thing that's happening. So talking marks can either be our two talking marks like this, but in these books you find that it's just the one little apostrophe looking thing. What I often find is that with talking marks, they're a bit tricky because sometimes you have to read ahead to then know how to say something. For example, in here it said something like, excuse me, said Ron sharply. So I needed to make sure that not only did I change my voice to show that Ron was speaking, but I needed to do it in the way that they described. And that's why sometimes when I've read to the class, I stop and I actually go back if I've read how it's the description afterwards and I haven't done it quite right. So let's say I accidentally read something in a happy voice, but it was meant to be sad. You need to go back and change that. So wherever you see your talking marks, you can put on the voice that you have decided to use for that particular character. You need to make sure that you're consistent. So if I'm using a particular voice for Ron or a particular voice for Harry, you need to make sure that you're using the same. And I'm not saying put on a silly voice, but maybe you go louder or softer, or you just change it in some way to signal to your readers that you are actually reading a character's voice. Okay? And when I read this at the very beginning, you couldn't tell if I was reading a character or if I was just reading normally. So let's do this bit from Ron. Excuse me, said Ron sharply. What do you mean, a bit of whoever we're changing into? I'm drinking nothing with crab's toenails in it. Or, for example, there was another one where it said that Harry was speechless and he asked Hermione about how we were going to steal things. Do you realise how much we're going to have to steal, Hermione? Shredded skin of boomslang? That's definitely not in the students' cupboard. What are we going to do? Break into Snape's private stores? Okay. And then we had Hermione earlier. She goes, here it is, said Hermione excitedly as she found the page. This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione, scanning the pages. Okay. So you can pick whatever voice you want to put on. It's not about being silly, but it is about letting your audience know that that character is speaking because they can't see the page. So you have to show them through your voice that that's what's happening. Okay. Next up we have question mark. Did I do that one next? So question mark. Okay. So question mark. You need to ask it like it's a question. And you go up slightly at the end. Okay? So it's the opposite of what you do for a full stop. So what I mean by that is when they're asking a question or you see a question mark, you make your voice go slightly up at the end to make it sound, huh? It's a question? Okay? It just makes your reading so much more interesting. So let's try and find one here. So I'm going to use the same bit. Excuse me? Said Ron sharply. What do you mean a bit of whoever we're changing into? Now I went down there, but most of the time we need to go up. Or something like, are we going to sneak into Snape's private stores? Okay, we're going up at the end. If I kept on reading a little bit more from this passage, we get up to the bit where Ron is telling Hermione that, he's like, oh, all right, yeah, we do have to break in. So I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be persuading us to break the rules, said Ron. All right, we'll do it, but not toenails, okay? You need to ask it like it's a question because that's exactly what it is. Okay, so whenever you see that, go up slightly or at least make it sound like a question. Whether you're a character or a narrator, that's really, really important. Okay, finally, exclamation mark. So when you've got an exclamation mark, it's either being shouted or forced. That you put an exclamation mark to put emphasis, to put a little bit of whoa behind it. Okay, so I actually don't think that I've got one in the particular passage that I just showed you before. I'm just having a look over here to see if there is. Let me see if I can find any. Okay, I've just found one. It's in the chapter where we've got a rogue bludger, and it's George yelling to Harry. So, oh, close one, Harry! George said, streaking past him with his club in his hand, ready to knock the bludger back towards a Slytherin player. Okay, so you already know the setting. They're up whizzing about in the sky on their broomsticks, playing Quidditch. He's trying to explain something to Harry, so there's a bit of emphasis behind it. So you wouldn't be saying, oh, close one, Harry. It's just not, it doesn't actually even suit with the book. So if you're reading it properly, you would know that that's what you would need to say. Another example is... I've just found another one where there's an exclamation mark. So there's actually a few. If we stop now, we'll have to forfeit the match, said Harry. And we're not losing to Slytherin just because of a mad bludger. Come on, Oliver, tell them to leave me alone. This is all your fault, George said angrily to Wood. Get the snitch or die trying. What a stupid thing to tell him. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4 exclamation marks in there. Okay? An exclamation mark is used instead of a full stop. I should probably tell you that. Okay? Instead of a full stop. Let's have a look here. In this final paragraph down here. Okay? If we stop now, we have to forfeit the match. Oh, why is my camera doing that? Hopefully that's a bit better. Get a mad bludger. Come on, Oliver, tell them to leave me alone. Or tell them to die trying. What a stupid thing to say. Okay? So there was lots of emphasis in there. Everybody's getting really riled up because they were going to cancel the match because of a rogue bludger and all of this kind of stuff. So an exclamation mark is important. It's also a really easy one to recognise, so we should be reading that one properly. Okay, so I've got 2 little activities that I want to see if you can get finished in this time. I know that I've been speaking a lot, and I know that if this is your second rotation, then you've probably done a lot of this on the floor, but it's probably the most important thing about people's reading, especially when reading aloud and reading to people. So what I'm going to do, this is the first little activity, is I'm going to read a passage of text. And what I want you to do in your book, I want you to write it out into your book. I don't care about spelling. I just want you to write it out. And I want to see if you can put in all of the punctuation that's needed, okay, based off the way that I've read it. So I'm not reading that much. I'm reading that much in between my fingers. So there's a few interesting words in here, and I would say that in here there is every piece of punctuation that we've spoken about. So let's see how we go, okay? Just got interrupted by the announcement, so I'm going to try reading that again. A month, said Ron. Malfoy could have attacked half the Muggle-borns in the school by then. But Hermione's eyes narrowed dangerously again, and he added swiftly, but it's the best plan we've got, so full steam ahead, I say. However, while Hermione was checking that the coast was clear for them to leave the bathroom, Ron muttered to Harry, it'll be a lot less hassle if you can just knock Malfoy off his broom tomorrow. Okay, you're probably going to have to listen to it a couple of times, but what I would really like you to do is to copy it out and to do all of it in grey lead, okay? Try. I'm telling you that there is 1 question mark, there's 1 exclamation mark, there's a fair few talking marks, a fair few full stops, and a fair few commas. Okay, have a go. I really want you to try and get that whole piece out. And what I would recommend you do is once you've finished writing all of it out, listen to it again and follow what you've written with your finger. Okay, because the next slide that I show is going to be where all of the punctuation should be. Okay, and when you have a look at the excerpt, I'm going to take a picture, I'm putting it in. You are then going to grab a red pencil and put in the marks that you missed. Okay, this is all about honesty, guys. Okay, don't rush ahead. I want you to see if you can do this. It's a really tough skill, and it's something that we wouldn't normally be doing in grade 3. But I think you guys are all right, and I think you guys can easily do this. So challenge yourself, go back, listen to me reading a couple of times, and see if you can do it by yourself. Challenge accepted. So here is the passage from the book. Have a read of it. Check what you have in your book. Put what you didn't put in red. Okay, it's not about necessarily right and wrong. I just want us to get a better understanding of how to use punctuation, not only in terms of writing, but how to use it when we're reading. Okay, final challenge of the day. It's actually less about reading and more about writing. In your cafe book, still on the cafe side, I want you to write anything. Okay, but you need to include a certain number of punctuation marks. So I would like in your piece of writing, you can have as many full stops as you want, and you must have talking marks, but I'm not going to tell you how many. You must have 3 commas, 3 question marks, 3 exclamation marks. Okay, I would like at least a page of writing. Okay, it can be a made up story. It can be telling me about, it can be a recount, something that happened on the weekend, last week, on camp, whatever. You just need to include as many full stops as you want. You must have some talking marks, but I'm not going to tell you how many, but I want at least 3 commas, 3 question marks, 3 exclamation marks. Once you've written it, proofread it, 4 full stops maybe. Okay, then I want you to find somewhere quiet. You can go outside, but you need to tell your teacher, and I want you to read your story into your iPad. Okay, and then when I come back from camp, or Miss McLaughlin can then get all of those videos airdropped, and we might show them in a little presentation. Okay. Look, I hope you guys have enjoyed this particular masterclass. It's been a bit of a strange one, a little bit interactive, a little bit of kind of listening. But the biggest thing I want to get across to you is punctuation is the thing that makes both your writing and your reading interesting. As much as adjectives and all those words are really, really good, punctuation elevates everything. So start using it, please. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.